Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Is it people look there and they go, oh my gosh, in 4 years or 8 years, they're going to regret their decision because nothing gets accomplished and now they're stuck there with all the high prices and all the, or what? Because here, and also too, I'm not surprised that he won 50% because look at the candidates he was against. I mean, they were all corrupt. Every single one of them. I mean, every single one of them were just, hey, it's like you're looking at mugshots of all of them, right? I mean, it wasn't.
They all have.
It wasn't.
I
it wasn't inspiring, Len. It wasn't inspiring, but on rent control, that right there is the biggest fundamental issue. What is it? I was just looking at it. Rent prices, right? The states that have the highest rent control usually have the highest rents. Oddly enough, I don't know what Florida's rent control stuff looks like, but they're pretty high. The average is 1,800, but yeah, New York is like insanity. I mean, New York's 1634. It's insane. But here's the problem: when rent control goes in statistically, and you could look at this. There's an interesting study between St. Paul, Missouri, and St. Paul. They're right next to each other, the Twin Cities. All right.
I saw that same study.
One has rent control and one doesn't. And you look at building permits. Building permits are down 61% where there's rent control, and building permits are up 61% where there is. But that's just one key thing that's happening right now. But the reality is that when you put rent controls in there, you don't get any more development. And that's fighting with the natural mechanism of free market. The free market usually should dictate the price, right? So if there's a supply, then the price comes down. If they're over to the demand, if there's not enough demand, and vice versa, basic supply and demand. So when you put those rent controls in there, no one wants to develop anymore. And what needs to happen is development. And I don't understand why we're not redeveloping all those office buildings, or maybe they are in New York City and all that stuff that aren't being used as office buildings anymore because the way working has changed. Those could all be renovated into or retroed into apartments or condos.
High-rise apartments.
Why isn't that happening? Is it happening? I don't know real estate that way, but I would imagine that would be a solution. But again, rent control scares the crap out of people. The reality is put that money to work and unregulate. I don't know why there's not a massive government initiative for infrastructure in the country nationally. Nuclear infrastructure. We're so obsessed with infighting that we can't even get anything done right now. We're stuck. We're looking more and more like a European nation every month, every year as we go by in America, because we're just so stuck infighting where it's like, even Mark Cuban said it at the beginning of Donald Trump's, or the end of Donald Trump's first term, or maybe he said at the beginning, the best way is just the biggest way, the most success you get is just a massive infrastructure initiative. We give out tax credits for EV purchases for 5-10 years. If we would give incentives for infrastructure, this country would be booming. It would be booming.
Biden had that was one of his big campaigns was the infrastructure.
Yeah, but he never did anything with it. I mean, Build Back Better.
He didn't get much done because there was so much congressional infighting even when he was in office, and so that infrastructure bill, it passed though. But when you're looking at infrastructure, it takes a long time because it was a $2 trillion bill, if I remember correctly. So I think that's still in place.
How much of that actually went? I don't know how much.
So it says the Biden infrastructure bill refers to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, a $1.2 trillion law signed by President Biden in November 2021. And so it allocates funding to a wide range of infrastructure projects, including roads, bridges, public transit, and high-speed internet, as well as investments in clean water, so on and so forth. So that's in place. That's been passed.
Okay, but then all right, cool. So you and I have both, here's the problem. Okay, if that has happened and you and I have both been in the private sector and you've been in the public sector, you've been in both.
I've been in both, yeah.
You've been in both. Okay, but here's the problem. Why the hell do we still have dirty water in Flint, Michigan?
That's a very good question.
Why is high-speed rail not built in California yet? It's been 15, 20 years. Why internet? Like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Starlink, you could deploy that like instantly, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why is
I
it
mean,
not?
I think we're both on the same page because, to answer your question about the high speed rail and the water situation in Flint, Michigan, we talked about it, which is whenever government is involved in operations and building, it doesn't get done efficiently because, what they'll do is they'll send out a bid and then they'll spend extra money and it's not efficient. And so there should be competition. There should be private companies that are the ones responsible for water, for infrastructure, so on and so forth. And they're not. And so I think we both definitely agree on the fact that there needs to be another influx of incentives towards private companies to come in.
Here's where I'd rather have Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders and AOC focus their time, even though maybe it's not their district, whoever's from those areas. What they ought to look at is they ought to look at the fact that Flint, Michigan has the Nestle water plant right there or right close to it. And they pump all this water that's clean and then sell it from Michigan. I think that's like right there. I don't know if you ever looked at that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So you got private companies like Nestle that aren't even American companies that buy water rights and they're selling our water, but yet Flint, Michigan can't get clean water. I wish that we would focus that. See, that's what politicians are sent to Capitol Hill to do, but they're not.
Correct.
We're still focused on trying to make a government grocery store. Instead, why don't we make a government agency that says, you know what, Nestle, you're not going to buy our water anymore and sell it. And when we don't have clean water coming out of the tap, what the hell are we in the time? Like, and I know we were supposed to talk about water and everything, but
right.
If we can't even trust them to regulate that, what makes you think we're going to regulate the safety of the food coming in a government what put Jack in the Box out of business? E. coli. That's what put that, you know what I mean? And in today's age, again, we're relying on the merit of somebody who's not going to turn a profit to be motivated to complete a task. That just goes against all human nature. And you know that. I mean, you and I you could take the most motivated individual, but sometimes you wake up and you go, dude, I'm just not motivated. Yeah, but if you don't get here today, Johnny and Susie won't get their lentil beans at the grocery store. I don't care about Johnny and Susie. I care about resting my bones today. Sorry, Johnny and Susie, you're not getting your lentils. You can wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. I think everybody sees the world through their own lens. And when you look at young people in New York City, they're not necessarily concerned about rental, the impact long term of price rises, because they're thinking, okay, look, if somebody comes in and they freeze these prices right now, then I can pay less credit card bills. I can pay some of my student loan debt off faster, as opposed to having to move every 12 months because my lease in this apartment has just finished and I'm going to owe an extra $300, $400, $500 a month next year. They're saying, look, if they can control it and freeze it right now, I could care less about it. Now, here's the long-term problem, to your point earlier, Chris, is that when you have people that are in rent frozen places, if I'm an investor, I'm not going to build there for two reasons. One is that I know the people that are there aren't going to turn over as quickly. So therefore, when people leave, then that gives me an opportunity to go into that unit, make some improvements, clean it up over time, charge a higher amount of rent because there's enough churn that's happening. So if people are staying there longer, then they're running down my apartment. I'm not going to go in there and put new carpet in. I'm not going to go in there and put new fixtures when somebody's there. I really wanted to speak practically because sometimes people don't understand that by freezing rents, you change the human incentive from something that's natural to something that's unnatural. And over time, what begins to happen is when you have people staying in their apartment for 20, 30, 40 years, then those apartments eventually turn into slums. And they're, if somebody's there for 15 years versus somebody's there for 1 year, of course their rent's going to be different because they haven't had the innovations and the renovations and all of those things. So when people don't understand that whole dynamic, because look, there's always a conflict between the owner and the employee. The owner wants to pay the least amount for their benefits and for their wages. And the person who is the employee wants to make the most wages regardless of the owner's profit margins. But the reality is, just like in any business, if you ask for too high in wages, if you ask for wages that are too high, one of two things are going to happen. They're either one, going to raise the prices and pass those on to their consumers, or two, they're going to go out of business because they're not profitable enough. And who loses in that scenario? The renter. And in this case, the employee. And in this case, the losers end up being the renters because they don't control any means of production. They're consumers. And so therefore, their interests are different. So when a politician comes in and they run in the interest of those individuals that are not productive to the detriment of people that are productive, no matter what, over time, it's not going to fare out well. That's why I believe that short term, I think Mamdani could create some change, but he also has to be careful that he doesn't run out the people who do control the means of production. Because I know you know this, Chris, but for our viewing audience, 1% of the population brings in 50% of the tax revenue. And if you run out that 1%, now you're screwed because now you have no money to work with.
Critical thinking, deep thinking, education, like understanding these things, history, like why are we ought to be educating about this. But see, that's the domino effect that had so scary about someone like Mamdani, is because we want to make it so normalized, because the next domino effect is, we tried to rent control. And that's the thing, is about the beast of the government. The beast of government never is satiated. The beast of government always wants to eat and consume and get bigger and fatter and nastier. And eventually it goes, we tried to rent control and they didn't fix anything. And now it's a slum, like you said. So now what do we have to do? We have to take it a step further. And he said it. We're going to buy these properties from these people that don't take care of them. He said it in a video that he released post-election that said, if they don't take care of it, we're going to step in and buy the property and take care of it. So now the government is going to buy private property because you're not taking care of it. Okay, why don't we round up everybody in this country that doesn't take care of themselves health-wise, that now we have to have the burden of taxes paid to people who really are sick because they ate too many Big Macs. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yes, a slippery slope.
It's the same exact thing. Whereas because eventually it's just more control. It's more government control. And okay, now we want to control because that's ultimately what socialism wants to go to, which is communism, which is controlling the means of production by the government, which means you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, who owns it all? Just a select group of people that have this righteous, ultra realistic values because we're just ordained by the government to be so precious and so benevolent that we're going to run everything and be in charge of all the trillions of dollars in the world, and we get to live in the palaces and you get to live in the squalor like everyone else. Heck no, man. Like, that's the history lessons that people need to do, is they need to look at that stuff and they need to realize that and they need to see that. With that being said, if you like the content, I know it got a little spicy today. It was good. Like or subscribe, engage, comment. We'd love to hear. And Len, have a phenomenal week. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Same to you.
Bye.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.